Do politicians break promises or break hearts? Or do they break rules? It can't be all that bad, can it? Maybe. It's Michael Patrick Shields with you. Radio stations all across the state of Michigan, worldwide at mibigshow.com. Streaming audio, podcasting, social media, you name it. We've got it. And leaders don't just meet expectations, they shatter them. You can discover your inner leader at Oakland University and learn more at oakland.edu/future students. A current professor, Dave Dulio at Oakland University, is on our AT&T line right now, the director for the Center for Civic Engagement there, and a professor in the political science department. Welcome back to the program. Good to talk to you again.
Good to talk to you. Thanks for having me back.
What is happening in the Michigan Republican Party?
Boy, seems like everything and anything these days. I think the best way to describe it is the party's fractured, and I think we see that from big events like the convention this last weekend, where we had a Trump-backed candidate, Ms. Caramo, win a fairly with a fairly substantial margin, but Mr. DePerno won that AG nomination or endorsement in a pretty slim victory over Mr. Leonard. I think that shows the divisions in the party. We've got the state legislature, the state house kicking out of one of its members from the Republican caucus, Mr. Maddock, and even down at a local level. I was speaking to a local Republican club last night, and there was division within the room of about 50 people over which way the party should go: follow down the Trump path or go back to the sort of more traditional route of Republicanism. So it's all over the place.
How would you describe Matt DePerno, who will be the Republican nominee for Attorney General?
I would say he's all in with Mr. Trump. I think there's no doubt about that. I think he's likely to make the race for Attorney General different than it has been in the past. And I would say the same thing about Ms. Caramo.
Does anybody remember these are real jobs they're running for? Do you know what I mean? Like, there has to be an Attorney General, and there's a real job to do there other than to get Donald Trump reelected or reinstated in their wildest dreams, right?
Yeah, I think it'll be very interesting to watch how the DePerno campaign approaches the next 5 or 6 months, and I think that speaks to your question about is the centrality of the job of Attorney General, and how do they talk to voters, potential voters that they're going to need to get in order to win? Do they talk to them about issues of relitigating the 2020 election, or do they pivot a little bit and try to talk about more sort of quote unquote mainstream Attorney General type issues?
Is the Donald going to make sure they stay in his column, in his line?
Oh, I don't think he has to worry about. I don't think he has to
Really?
worry much about that. I think that's a pretty solid bet.
Does the nomination of Christina Caramo and Matt DePerno mean anything in the primary for governor? What I mean by that is to who the Republicans will select, because it's not a closed door deal then, right? We all get to pick in that primary.
No, I think that's the most important difference between these two selection processes, right? I think the candidates that were chosen this last weekend, those who were organized and drove their delegates to the convention and had good organization there were benefited. And of course, at a party convention, the group of participants is smaller, much more likely to be hardcore partisan. You fast forward to the August primary, and you get obviously a wider swath of the public that's going to include some maybe less strident Republicans, and you can even have, as you mentioned, right, in our open primary system, you can even have Democrats come over and vote in that Republican primary.
So a lot of times people will say, well, the only reason people didn't like Donald Trump is because he was kind of a big mouth, but he really got a lot of important things done. Does that hold water?
I think it does. I think that if you look at the record of the Trump administration, especially on the economy, you see lots of things that could be touted and that they could brag about, no doubt.
Do you know any of them? Can you just, like, when somebody has that discussion or argument or whatever, can you name some specifics?
Well, I think the president and his team, the former president and his team, would point to low unemployment. I think they would point to low inflation numbers. I think they would point to high returns in the stock market. Now, of course, every president gets too much credit for a good economy and too much blame for a bad economy. So part of that might have been timing, but I don't think that. I'll put it this way: I think President Biden would love to have the economic times that the Trump administration enjoyed.
The Biden administration now seems to be pointing to COVID and the war and misinformation. They've got a lot of excuses, it seems like, don't they?
They do, and I think they're pointing fingers at everybody but themselves. And I think that that's certainly not where the places that the Biden administration is pointing is not where the American public seems to be pointing in terms of blame for inflation, gas prices, general economic uncertainty.
And how did he get elected in the first place?
Well, it was a close election, right? I mean, we can't forget that. If in our system that uses the Electoral College, if about 44,000 votes were switched between a handful of states, Donald Trump would be president today. And I think we're still a 50-50 country. Michigan's still a 50-50 state. It's close, and so I think the president got elected in 2020, maybe more about people's dissatisfaction or desire to move on from Donald Trump than real positive feelings about Joe Biden.
Dave Dulio, if Michigan is a 50-50 state, then why tack toward the fringe in your effort to get votes?
Well, I think that's going to be the hard problem for some of the candidates that are going to come through not only the convention process but the primary process. That tacking toward the fringe, as you say, is that works in a primary. It doesn't work as well in the general election.
Well, we'll see if the Republicans can sort of steer back into that column, but Democrats are going to be sure to keep them in there. It's an easy time to have a talk show, that's for sure, and maybe not an easy time to talk to students to explain it to them, but I know Oakland University is a great place to get that done because Dave Dulio is there, the director of the Center for Civic Engagement and professor of political science there in Rochester, Michigan. Michael Patrick Shields all across Michigan through the AT&T microphones.